Maya was a young lawyer who had just started her career. She had worked hard to reach this point. Her family was proud of her, and her friends always admired her intelligence and dedication. She had a bright smile, and people trusted her instantly. Maya loved the law. She believed it could protect the innocent and punish the guilty. Maya worked at a small law firm in her hometown. It was not a big office, but it was honest work. She enjoyed helping people, solving problems, and finding justice. Daniel was her colleague. He was charming, polite, and seemed very knowledgeable about the law. Maya liked working with him. She thought he was a friend she could rely on. They often discussed cases together, sometimes staying late at the office to review documents. Daniel had his own ambitions. He wanted to become a famous lawyer quickly. Sometimes he would talk about power, influence, and making big decisions. Maya did not mind. She only wanted to focus on helping her clients. But Daniel saw her intelligence as a tool for his own goals. He admired her skill, but he did not respect her honesty. One morning, the firm received a complaint from a client about missing money. The client was upset and claimed that someone had taken funds from their account. Maya was shocked. She knew she had never touched the money. She tried to calm the client and promised to investigate the matter carefully. Daniel offered to help, but in reality, he had already decided to frame Maya. Daniel created fake evidence. He manipulated documents and emails to make it look like Maya had stolen the money. When the firm's management discovered the proof, they were horrified. Maya could not explain how it happened. She felt a wave of fear and confusion. She tried to speak to Daniel, asking him if there was some mistake. Daniel smiled politely and said he was sure the evidence was clear. The law was supposed to protect her, but it felt like it had turned against her. The case went to court. Maya hired the best lawyers she could afford, but the evidence was against her. The prosecutor painted her as a clever and dishonest person. Daniel testified against her. His voice was calm and his expression showed no guilt. He described the case in detail, convincing everyone that Maya had planned the theft. Maya felt the walls closing in. She stood in the courtroom trying to explain the truth, but no one listened. The judge looked serious and the jury seemed uncertain. She felt her dream slipping away. She remembered all the hours she had spent working honestly, all the late nights at the office, all the trust she had given to people who seemed her friends. Now it seemed meaningless. When the verdict came, Maya could hardly believe it. She was found guilty. 3 years in prison. The words echoed in her mind. 3 years. It felt like her life had been stolen in a single moment. She looked at Daniel. He gave a polite nod, but his eyes were cold. Maya could not understand how someone she trusted could do this. The first day in prison was terrifying. Maya had never been in such a place before. The walls were gray and tall. Guards watched every movement. Other prisoners stared at her with curiosity and suspicion. She felt small, scared, and alone. At night, she could not sleep. She thought about her family, her career, and the life she had lost. She thought about Daniel and the betrayal that had destroyed her world. Days turned into weeks. Maya slowly learned the rules of the prison. She realized that anger alone would not help her survive. She needed to be strong, smart, and patient. She made friends with some women who had been there longer. They shared advice and warned her about the dangers of the place. Maya listened carefully, learning how to protect herself without fighting. During the day, Maya spent hours in the prison library. She read everything she could find about the law. She studied cases, legal strategies, and courtroom techniques. She learned about federal law, evidence handling, and courtroom behavior. Her mind became sharper. She realized that she could not change the past, but she could prepare for the future. One day, she told herself she would return, not for revenge, but to make sure justice was done. Maya also helped other women in prison. Some were innocent, some were guilty, but all needed guidance. She advised them on legal matters, helped them write letters, and listened to their problems. Slowly, she earned respect. Prisoners began to call her the teacher. Guards noticed her calm attitude and her ability to manage difficult situations. Maya was not just surviving. She was growing stronger. 3 years passed, and the day of her release finally arrived. Maya walked out of the prison gates. The sun felt warm on her face. The world outside was the same, but she had changed. She was no longer the young, naive lawyer who had walked into Daniel's trap. She was wiser, stronger, and more determined. Maya returned home. Her family welcomed her with tears and hugs. Friends who had believed in her apologized for doubting her. Maya smiled gently. She did not speak much about the past. She only said that the future was what mattered. She knew she could not undo the betrayal, but she could make sure justice was always on her side. She returned to work, this time more carefully. She studied more cases, gained experience, and slowly rebuilt her career. She wanted to become a lawyer who could protect the innocent and expose the guilty. Years passed, and Maya became known for her sharp mind and fair judgments. She earned respect in the legal world, and eventually her dedication led her to an important position. She became a federal judge, a person whose decisions could not be easily challenged. Meanwhile, Daniel had continued his life. He had risen in his career, becoming a well-known lawyer. He often spoke of his success and believed he had outsmarted everyone. He had no idea that Maya had survived, learned, and grown stronger. He had no idea that one day she would return to the courtroom in a position of power. Maya never forgot the betrayal, but she also did not let it fill her heart with hate. She wanted justice, not anger. She wanted the truth to be seen. She remembered every lesson from prison, the patience, the courage, the quiet determination to grow stronger. Every moment of suffering had prepared her for this day. When the time finally came, Maya knew she was ready. She was no longer the lawyer Daniel had deceived. She was a federal judge, respected, powerful, and wise. She had learned that real strength came from knowledge, patience, and integrity, and deep in her heart she carried a quiet promise. One day, Daniel would face the consequences of his actions. The story of Maya's betrayal and survival became her secret strength. She walked the streets of her hometown with confidence. People admired her dedication and intelligence, unaware of the hidden fire that burned inside her. She had been wronged, but she had turned that wrong into power. Maya understood that justice was not always fast and revenge was not the answer. Patience, courage, and wisdom were stronger than anger, and as she prepared for the future, she knew that the world would soon witness the return of a woman who had once been destroyed, but now had the strength to shape her destiny and confront the past. The chapter of betrayal had ended. The chapter of transformation had begun, and somewhere, Daniel was still unaware that the storm was coming. After her release from prison, Maya returned to the world with a quiet determination. The city had changed in the years she was gone, and so had she. She did not rush into her career immediately. Instead, she took time to observe, to learn, and to plan. Every day she reminded herself of the promise she had made, to return stronger, wiser, and ready to face the past with justice on her side. Maya knew she needed knowledge and experience to reclaim her life. She began studying law more deeply than ever before. She read books that explained the intricacies of courtroom procedures, criminal law, and federal cases. She studied famous trials and how judges handled complex situations. Her mind, once clouded with fear and anger, became sharp, precise, and focused. While Maya studied, she also built connections in the legal community. She volunteered in legal aid centers, helping people who could not afford lawyers. She took cases that others avoided because they were difficult or complicated. Slowly, she gained a reputation for her dedication and her ability to find solutions when others failed. People started noticing her intelligence and honesty. Her friends and family supported her quietly. They believed in her resilience and admired the way she faced life after everything she had endured. Maya was no longer the young, naive lawyer who had walked into Daniel's trap. She was stronger, more confident, and more patient. She understood that success would not come overnight, and she was willing to wait, to learn, and to grow. Maya's transformation was not just professional, it was personal as well. She had learned patience, discipline, and self-control. She practiced meditation to stay calm, exercised to keep her body strong, and maintained her focus on long-term goals. She avoided distractions and people who brought negativity into her life. Every small victory in her daily routine was a step toward the life she was rebuilding. During this time, Maya also reflected on her past. She remembered Daniel's betrayal vividly, the way he had manipulated evidence and convinced everyone that she was guilty. She remembered the fear she felt in prison and the loneliness of being misunderstood, but she did not dwell on anger or revenge. Instead, she used these memories as motivation to become someone untouchable by lies and deceit. Maya began taking more challenging cases. She helped clients whose situations were complicated and required careful analysis. She became known for her calm demeanor in court, her sharp observations, and her ability to uncover hidden truths. People trusted her because she treated every case with integrity. Slowly, her reputation grew beyond the small circles of her hometown. As the years passed, Maya faced new challenges, but she never gave up. She encountered difficult judges, stubborn clients, and cases that seemed impossible to win. Each obstacle taught her something new. She learned how to read people, how to anticipate their moves, and how to protect herself from unfair tactics. Every lesson she learned added to her strength and prepared her for the ultimate moment she had been waiting for. Maya also kept an eye on Daniel. She watched his career from a distance. He had become a successful lawyer, known for winning cases and impressing clients. He was respected, admired, and even envied by his peers. But Maya noticed cracks in his success. He had a habit of underestimating others, just as he had underestimated her. He relied on charm and manipulation rather than real skill. Maya smiled quietly to herself. She knew that time had not changed her. It had only made her stronger, while he had stayed the same. To prepare for the day she would confront Daniel, Maya focused on becoming a federal judge. She understood that to face him in a position of authority, she needed experience, respect, and a reputation for fairness. She applied herself tirelessly, taking cases that challenged her intellect and morality. She never allowed herself to be distracted by petty matters. Her goal was clear, and she pursued it relentlessly. Maya's transformation also inspired others. Young lawyers who struggled with difficult cases sought her guidance. She shared her knowledge generously, teaching them not only the law but also the importance of patience, integrity, and courage. Her story became a quiet legend in the legal community. People admired her, though few knew the full story of her past and the betrayal that had shaped her life. At the same time, Maya never forgot the lessons of prison. She knew that power without wisdom could be dangerous. She remained humble, careful, and methodical in everything she did. Her calm confidence made people trust her decisions, and she learned to handle pressure without showing fear or weakness. Her enemies, if she had any, could not easily find a flaw in her character. One day, Maya received news that would change her life further. She had been nominated for a federal judgeship. Her years of hard work, dedication, and honesty had paid off. She would now have the authority and the respect that only a federal judge could command. This was more than a personal achievement. It was the step that would allow her to face the past on her own terms. Maya's mind turned briefly to Daniel. She did not plan to act impulsively. She understood that justice required patience and strategy. She knew that when the time came, she would face him not with anger, but with the law itself. Every move he had made against her would be exposed through truth, evidence, and fairness. Maya's training, experience, and transformation had prepared her for this moment. As she prepared to take her oath as a federal judge, Maya felt a deep sense of calm. She remembered her first days as a lawyer, full of hope and excitement. She remembered the betrayal, the fear, and the long nights in prison. She remembered every lesson she had learned. And now she was ready. She had transformed not only her skills and career, but also her character and resolve. She was no longer the victim. She was a guardian of justice. Maya's appointment was celebrated quietly by her friends and family. They knew her journey had been difficult, and they admired her resilience. At the same time, she remained focused on her mission. She would uphold the law fairly, ensure justice for the innocent, and confront those who abused their power. She carried herself with dignity, wisdom, and quiet strength. Even as Maya embraced her new role, she continued to grow. She attended seminars, studied new laws, and mentored young lawyers. She never allowed herself to become complacent. Every day was an opportunity to improve, to learn, and to prepare for the moment she had long awaited. She was patient, methodical, and wise. She understood that true power came from knowledge, fairness, and careful planning. Maya's transformation was complete. She was no longer a victim of betrayal. She was a federal judge, respected by peers, admired by young lawyers, and feared by those who tried to manipulate the law. Her journey from prison to power had been long, difficult, and full of challenges. Yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to face the future. Deep inside, Maya knew the time would come when she would meet Daniel again. She did not need to rush or force the moment. The law itself, her skill, and her integrity would ensure that the truth would prevail. She had learned that patience and preparation were far more powerful than anger or revenge. She smiled quietly, knowing that her transformation had been complete. The past had shaped her, but it did not define her. Maya walked through the halls of the courthouse with confidence. People greeted her with respect, unaware of the private strength that burned within her. She had faced betrayal, imprisonment, and fear, and she had turned every challenge into an opportunity. Now she was not only a judge but also a symbol of justice, resilience, and the power of knowledge. And somewhere, far away, Daniel continued his life, unaware that the woman he had once betrayed had returned stronger than ever. Maya's transformation was not just personal. It was the beginning of a journey that would soon bring her face to face with the past and the man who had caused her so much pain. She was ready, and the world would see the power of patience, courage, and justice. Maya had become a respected federal judge, known for her fairness, intelligence, and calm demeanor. Her reputation had grown across the city. People admired her dedication to justice, her ability to handle complicated cases, and her skill in uncovering the truth. She had transformed completely from the young lawyer who had once been betrayed. Despite her success, one thought stayed in Maya's mind: Daniel. She had not forgotten him. The man who had once destroyed her life still lived freely, unaware of the storm that had quietly grown in her. Maya did not rush or act impulsively. She had learned patience. She knew that the right time to confront the past would come, and it would be a moment defined by law, evidence, and justice, not anger. Daniel had climbed high in his career. He had a luxurious office in the city, clients who trusted him blindly, and colleagues who respected him. He was known for winning difficult cases, for his charm, and for his cleverness. But Daniel had not changed. He still relied on manipulation and persuasion rather than skill and fairness. He often spoke about his success, unaware that the past he had tried to bury was quietly preparing to rise again. One bright morning, Daniel entered a courthouse for a high-profile case. He was confident as always. He adjusted his tie, smiled at his assistant, and stepped into the courtroom, ready to face the challenge. But when he looked up, he froze. Judge Maya sat at the bench, calm and composed. Her eyes met his, steady and unwavering. Daniel's confidence faltered for a moment. Maya recognized him immediately. The face that had betrayed her so many years ago had not changed much. His expression was polite, but there was a flicker of something unusual, a hint of nervousness. Maya remained calm. She did not react outwardly. She knew that her power was not in displays of anger, but in control, knowledge, and patience. The court session began. Maya's voice was firm and clear as she called the court to order. Daniel attempted to speak confidently, but he noticed subtle changes in her demeanor. She questioned witnesses with precision, examined evidence thoroughly, and guided the trial with skill and authority. It became clear that Maya's reputation as a federal judge was well earned. She was respected not only by her peers but also by everyone in the courtroom. Daniel began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. He had faced many judges before, but none like Maya. Her questions were thoughtful, her observations sharp, and her understanding of the law deeper than he had expected. Slowly, he realized that she had grown into a force he could not easily challenge. The trial continued over days. Witnesses were called, evidence was presented, and arguments were made. Daniel tried to use his usual tactics, persuasion, charm, and clever questions, but Maya anticipated every move. She allowed truth to guide the courtroom, giving no room for lies or manipulation. Each day, Daniel's confidence weakened. He began to understand that the woman he had once destroyed was now beyond his control. Outside the courtroom, Maya continued her preparation carefully. She reviewed evidence, studied legal precedents, and mentored her clerks. Every decision she made was guided by fairness and knowledge. She was patient, knowing that the trial itself would reveal the weaknesses in Daniel's character and methods. Her calmness became her strength, and the courtroom became a stage where truth would prevail. Daniel noticed changes in people around him as well. Clients and colleagues began to respect Maya in ways they had never respected him. They whispered about her intelligence, her fairness, and her ability to manage complex cases. Daniel's own reputation, once untouchable, seemed less certain. He could feel the power shifting, and for the first time he feared the consequences of his past actions. As the trial reached critical moments, Maya began to see the cracks in Daniel's defenses. Witnesses who had previously been intimidated now spoke confidently under her guidance. Documents that had been overlooked or hidden were revealed through careful examination. Slowly, the truth began to surface, showing inconsistencies in Daniel's statements and strategies. Maya observed everything quietly. She did not smile or celebrate. She only ensured that justice was served. Daniel, however, was unsettled. He realized that every move he had made against her years ago was now being exposed indirectly. The courtroom, guided by Maya's authority, was revealing not only the facts of the case but also the weaknesses in his methods. Outside the trial, Maya reflected on her journey. She remembered the years in prison, the long nights of study, and the slow climb back into the legal world. She remembered every lesson of patience, courage, and discipline. Those lessons had prepared her for this moment. She understood that confrontation was not about anger, but about precision, preparation, and the unwavering application of truth and justice. Daniel tried to regain control, but it was too late. The courtroom had become Maya's domain. Her presence commanded respect, and her decisions were guided by law, not emotion. Slowly, Daniel understood that he could not manipulate or intimidate her. The power he once held over her life was gone. The woman he had underestimated had returned stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. The trial continued to expose truths. Daniel's past cases, strategies, and behavior were scrutinized. Subtle mistakes he had made years ago were now being noticed by colleagues, clients, and the court itself. Maya's influence ensured that the process was fair, methodical, and precise. No one could deny her authority, and no lie could withstand the careful examination she provided. Maya remained calm throughout. She listened carefully, questioned deliberately, and allowed facts to speak. Her patience and preparation became a lesson not only to Daniel, but also to everyone observing the trial. People began to see that justice was not about power, influence, or manipulation. It was about knowledge, fairness, and integrity. Daniel felt the weight of his past actions pressing upon him. For the first time, he realized that betrayal had consequences. He had thought he could escape the truth, but it had followed him patiently. Guided by Maya's determination and skill, he understood that the woman he had wronged had returned not as a victim, but as a guardian of justice. Maya's presence in the courtroom was a quiet storm. She did not need to raise her voice or show anger. Every word, every question, every decision was precise and deliberate. She allowed the law to speak through her, and the truth became undeniable. Daniel, once confident and powerful, was now forced to face the reality of his actions. By the final days of the trial, the courtroom atmosphere had changed completely. Witnesses were confident, the jury was attentive, and Daniel's usual control had vanished. Maya had guided the process with intelligence, patience, and fairness. She had transformed the courtroom into a place where truth could not be ignored. When the trial concluded, Daniel felt the weight of his past crashing down on him. He realized that the woman he had betrayed years ago had returned not for revenge, but to ensure justice. Maya's transformation, patience, and skill had made him powerless in the face of truth. He had been given a chance to manipulate, but he had failed against someone far wiser and stronger than he had anticipated. Maya walked out of the courtroom calmly. Her expression was serene, her steps measured. She had fulfilled her duty not just as a judge, but as a symbol of integrity and justice. Daniel followed, humbled and unable to comprehend fully how the woman he had destroyed had returned stronger than ever. Maya's return had been complete. She was no longer a victim of betrayal. She had reclaimed her life, her career, and her dignity. And Daniel, for the first time, understood that the consequences of his actions were unavoidable. The woman he had wronged had returned, and her presence would forever remind him that truth and justice could never be defeated. The courtroom was filled with tension. Maya sat at the bench, calm and composed, as the trial continued. This case was high profile, and everyone knew that it required careful attention. Daniel, confident at first, tried to control the proceedings, but he could feel the growing influence of Judge Maya. She had the skill, patience, and intelligence to see through every argument he made. Daniel had prepared for this trial as he had for many others. He had relied on his usual strategies of persuasion, careful presentation, and subtle intimidation. But Maya was different. She noticed every detail, every hidden clue, and every inconsistency. She questioned witnesses thoroughly, examining not just their statements but their intentions. Slowly, the courtroom shifted under her authority. The first witness Daniel called was nervous. He tried to coach them, but Maya asked clear, precise questions that left no room for hesitation. The witness spoke the truth, revealing small details that contradicted Daniel's plan. Daniel's face showed the first signs of worry. He realized that Maya's control over the trial was stronger than he had expected. Maya listened carefully, her eyes steady, her tone calm. She did not rush or show impatience. Every word she spoke carried weight. She guided the courtroom with a quiet strength, allowing facts to surface naturally. Daniel tried to interject, but she gently reminded him of the procedure, subtly asserting her authority. It was clear to everyone present that Maya commanded the trial. Over the following days, evidence was presented that revealed hidden connections. Maya noticed discrepancies in Daniel's previous cases and pointed them out carefully. She allowed witnesses to explain fully, exposing contradictions in their statements without appearing harsh or unfair. Slowly, the truth began to emerge. Daniel could feel the shift in energy. His confidence was cracking. He tried to maintain composure, but every time Maya spoke or questioned someone, he realized that he was losing control. The courtroom that he had entered with arrogance was now turning into a place where he had no power. Maya's presence was firm and unyielding, and the law itself seemed to flow through her hands. Outside the courtroom, observers were fascinated. Lawyers, reporters, and even students watched Maya's careful handling of the trial. They noticed how she allowed the truth to emerge naturally, and how she maintained fairness while revealing the facts. People whispered that this was a masterclass in judicial skill, and Daniel's reputation began to wobble under the scrutiny. Maya's strategy was deliberate. She knew that confrontation was not about shouting or dramatics. It was about letting evidence and logic work. She organized every document, questioned every witness, and used the law to guide the process. Daniel's attempts at manipulation failed because Maya anticipated them all. She had prepared meticulously for this moment, and every step she took was part of a larger plan. Daniel grew frustrated. He had underestimated Maya's patience and intelligence. He remembered the days when he had framed her, thinking she was naive and weak. Now he saw that she had transformed completely. Her calmness, her command of the law, and her ability to see through deception made him realize that he was facing someone far beyond his reach. During the trial, a critical piece of evidence was discovered. A document from years ago, which Daniel had tried to hide, came to light. It showed his manipulation in a past case that had involved similar deceit. Maya allowed the evidence to be examined thoroughly. The court watched in silence as the truth revealed itself. Daniel could feel the walls closing in. Maya did not gloat. She remained calm and professional. She knew that justice was about more than personal satisfaction. It was about fairness, truth, and integrity. Her demeanor inspired respect from everyone in the courtroom. Witnesses spoke openly, jurors listened carefully, and even Daniel's allies began to doubt his methods. As the days progressed, Maya continued to dismantle Daniel's arguments methodically. She highlighted inconsistencies in his statements, exposed hidden motives, and allowed the truth to guide the court. Each step weakened Daniel's influence. He could feel the power slipping from his hands, and he realized that his past actions were finally catching up with him. Outside the courtroom, the legal community began to talk about the trial. Lawyers discussed Maya's skill in handling complex situations. Students wrote notes about her strategies, and reporters covered her calm, intelligent approach. People who had once admired Daniel began to question his integrity. Maya's influence extended beyond the courtroom, showing that fairness and truth could overcome manipulation. Maya also inspired those who had once been in positions of weakness. She remembered her own time in prison, the fear and isolation she had felt. Now she used her authority to ensure that everyone had a fair chance. She listened to arguments patiently, allowed evidence to be presented fully, and made decisions based solely on truth. Her presence reminded everyone that justice was not about power, but about fairness and integrity. Daniel realized that he had lost control completely. He had tried to manipulate witnesses, present false arguments, and use his reputation to sway opinions. But Maya's careful planning and patience had outmatched him at every turn. The courtroom, guided by her authority, had become a place where truth could not be ignored. As the final days of the trial approached, Maya prepared to deliver critical instructions to the jury. She spoke with clarity and precision, summarizing the facts, highlighting inconsistencies, and guiding them to understand the truth without bias. Her voice was calm, but every word carried weight. The jury listened intently, aware of the integrity behind her words. Daniel's attempts to sway the jury failed. The evidence, the witnesses, and Maya's careful handling of the trial left no room for deception. Slowly, Daniel's influence crumbled. He understood that the power he had once held over Maya's life was now gone. The woman he had betrayed was no longer vulnerable. She was strong, wise, and unstoppable. Finally, the day of judgment arrived. Maya remained composed as the jury returned with their verdict. The courtroom held its breath. Daniel could see that his past actions had caught up with him. The verdict confirmed that the truth had prevailed. Daniel's client lost the case, and the evidence of Daniel's manipulation could not be ignored. His reputation was damaged, and he realized the consequences of his choices. Maya left the courtroom quietly, her expression serene. She had achieved what she had set out to do, not through anger or revenge, but through knowledge, patience, and fairness. Daniel, humbled and defeated, understood for the first time that justice had its own way of returning. Maya's journey from betrayal to transformation had reached a new height. She had faced the man who had destroyed her life and allowed the law to reveal the truth. She had returned stronger, wiser, and more powerful, and she had done so without compromising her integrity. The courtroom had witnessed a quiet storm of justice. Maya's skill, patience, and courage had exposed the truth, dismantled deception, and restored fairness. She had proven that betrayal, no matter how deep, could be overcome through determination, knowledge, and unwavering commitment to what was right. As Maya walked out of the courthouse, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had reclaimed her life, her career, and her dignity. The past no longer held power over her. She had turned every hardship into strength, every betrayal into motivation, and every challenge into opportunity. Daniel, meanwhile, had to face the consequences of his actions. He had underestimated Maya, and that mistake had cost him dearly. He had learned that deception could not survive against patience, intelligence, and truth. The woman he had tried to destroy had returned not for revenge, but to show that justice would always find a way. Maya's transformation was complete. She had faced betrayal, imprisonment, and loss, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to uphold justice. The courtroom had become a place where truth prevailed, and Daniel had learned the power of integrity. And while the city continued with its daily life, everyone who witnessed the trial understood a quiet truth. Maya had returned, not as a victim but as a guardian of justice. Her patience, courage, and skill had transformed not only her life, but also the lives of those who sought fairness and truth. Maya's story was far from over. The trial had ended, but her journey as a federal judge, as a symbol of justice, and as someone who had faced betrayal with strength and patience, would continue. She had proven that the law, when guided by wisdom and integrity, could overcome even the deepest wrongs, and somewhere, Daniel would carry the memory of the courtroom, the truth, and the woman he had once betrayed, realizing that some mistakes could never be erased. The city had begun to recognize Judge Maya as more than just a skilled lawyer. She had become a symbol of fairness, integrity, and strength. Everyone in the courthouse knew her reputation. People came to her for guidance, confident that she would handle every case with wisdom and fairness. Her calm demeanor inspired respect, and her intelligence demanded it. Despite all this recognition, Maya's mind still returned occasionally to Daniel. She had faced him in court before, but there were moments when subtle consequences of his actions had yet to unfold. She did not act out of anger. She acted to ensure that justice was complete. Her mission was not revenge, but truth. She wanted the law to correct the wrongs he had caused. Daniel, meanwhile, had grown more cautious. His career had taken hits in small ways after his defeat in the previous trial. Colleagues began questioning his ethics, clients grew skeptical, and even young lawyers who once admired him now spoke quietly about his past mistakes. Yet Daniel still tried to maintain his charm and confidence. He did not expect that Maya had plans that would reveal the full extent of his actions. A new case arrived that would bring them together again. Daniel represented a wealthy client accused of fraud and manipulation. He was confident, believing that his experience, charm, and influence could carry the case in his favor. However, he did not realize that Judge Maya was now presiding over this case. The courtroom grew tense as both entered. Daniel's confident smile faltered slightly when he saw her calm, determined gaze. The trial began with careful examination of evidence. Maya immediately noticed irregularities in Daniel's client's documents. She questioned witnesses meticulously, uncovering inconsistencies and hidden truths that Daniel had tried to obscure. Each time Daniel attempted to sway the court, Maya guided the proceedings with patience and authority. It became clear that the courtroom was under her control. Daniel felt pressure building. He remembered the past, the time when he had manipulated evidence against Maya, believing she could not defend herself. Now he faced a woman whose mind was sharper, whose patience was unshakable, and whose knowledge of the law was unparalleled. Daniel realized he could no longer dominate the courtroom with charm or intimidation. Maya allowed evidence and truth to lead the trial. She remained fair, listening to every argument and ensuring that everyone had the opportunity to speak. She did not appear angry or vengeful, but every action she took was deliberate. She exposed inconsistencies in testimony, revealed hidden motives, and guided the court toward uncovering the facts without bias. As the days passed, the courtroom began to shift completely. Witnesses became more confident, jurors paid closer attention, and even Daniel's allies began to question his tactics. The evidence of past manipulation surfaced in careful examination. Every attempt Daniel made to distract or confuse the court was neutralized by Maya's precision. Outside the courtroom, Maya's reputation grew even stronger. Lawyers discussed her strategy, students wrote about her calm authority, and reporters highlighted her skill in ensuring fairness while uncovering truth. Maya had become a role model for integrity in the legal profession. Daniel's past victories now seemed hollow compared to her measured, intelligent approach. During a critical moment in the trial, Maya called a witness who had been hesitant in previous trials. With careful guidance, the witness revealed details that directly contradicted Daniel's statements and plans. The courtroom felt the tension as truth began to shine clearly. Daniel's attempts to regain control failed repeatedly. He could feel the walls of his carefully built confidence crumbling. Maya remained composed throughout. She did not allow her personal history with Daniel to affect her decisions. She acted with professionalism, patience, and intelligence. Her calm demeanor and methodical approach made the truth impossible to ignore. Daniel realized that he could no longer manipulate the trial to his advantage. Every lie, every manipulation, and every past deceit was now under careful scrutiny. As the trial reached its climax, Maya prepared the final instructions for the jury. She spoke clearly, summarizing facts, highlighting discrepancies, and guiding them to understand the truth. Her words carried authority, fairness, and intelligence. She did not lecture or scold. She allowed logic, evidence, and reason to guide the jury's understanding. Daniel watched helplessly. He realized that the woman he had betrayed years ago had not returned for revenge in the traditional sense. She had returned as a judge, as a guardian of justice, and her methods were far more effective than anger could ever be. The courtroom had become a place where truth could not be hidden, and Daniel's manipulation could not survive. When the jury delivered its verdict, the result was clear. Daniel's client was found guilty. The evidence was undeniable, and Daniel's attempts to defend him had failed. The courtroom understood that fairness and truth had prevailed over manipulation and deceit. Daniel's reputation suffered further, and he could no longer hide behind his charm or previous successes. Maya remained calm as the court session ended. She had achieved what she wanted, not through anger, not through vengeance, but through law, knowledge, and fairness. She had faced Daniel again, and justice had been fully restored. The man who had once destroyed her life had been humbled, and the law had been shown to be stronger than deceit. Outside the courtroom, people admired Maya's calm strength. Lawyers discussed the trial for months, praising her fairness, intelligence, and ability to reveal the truth. Students and young professionals looked up to her as a model of patience, courage, and wisdom. Her story of transformation from a betrayed lawyer to a respected federal judge inspired everyone who heard it. Daniel left the courtroom quietly, defeated, and reflective. He understood for the first time the consequences of his past actions. The power he had once believed he possessed was gone. He realized that underestimating someone like Maya had been his greatest mistake. The woman he had betrayed had returned not with anger, but with the authority and skill to ensure justice prevailed. Maya's journey had reached its climax. She had transformed from a young, naive lawyer into a powerful federal judge. She had faced betrayal, imprisonment, and loss, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to uphold justice. Her patience, courage, and skill had ensured that fairness triumphed over deceit. In her quiet moments, Maya reflected on her journey. She remembered the fear she had felt in prison, the years of studying and preparation, and the careful steps she had taken to reclaim her life. Every challenge had strengthened her. Every betrayal had taught her patience, and every obstacle had prepared her for the moment when justice would be fully served. Maya continued her work as a judge with dignity. She listened carefully, guided the courtroom fairly, and ensured that truth was always the guiding principle. Her integrity inspired confidence in everyone who appeared before her. She had learned that true power came not from manipulation or deceit, but from knowledge, patience, and fairness. Daniel, meanwhile, learned a quiet lesson. He realized that his attempts to control, deceive, and manipulate could not withstand someone who combined intelligence, patience, and integrity. He understood that justice was not about power or influence, but about fairness and truth. Maya had returned as a symbol of that truth, and he could not escape its weight. Maya's story became a quiet legend in the city. People admired her journey from betrayal to transformation, and her unwavering commitment to justice. She had faced one of the greatest challenges of her life, and had emerged victorious, not through anger or revenge, but through law, wisdom, and patience. As she walked through the courthouse halls, Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her career. She had faced the past and ensured that justice had been fully restored. Her journey from betrayal to transformation had reached a triumphant conclusion, and she had done so without losing her integrity. And somewhere, Daniel carried the memory of the courtroom, the verdict, and the woman who had once been vulnerable but had returned stronger than ever. He understood that some mistakes could never be erased, and the consequences of betrayal were unavoidable when faced with truth, patience, and justice. Maya's story was complete. She had faced betrayal, grown stronger, and restored justice. The city had witnessed the return of a woman who had been wronged, and everyone understood that integrity, intelligence, and patience could overcome even the deepest betrayal. She had returned not as a victim, but as a guardian of justice, a judge whose strength and fairness would inspire generations to come.